By Wednesday, December 1, 2021, we'd achieved a backyard observing deck. Now for the mount and scope. The deck, as you can see, has a decent southern view. In fact, due south lies directly over the peak of the neighbor's outbuilding. The ridge is not more than 10 degrees above where stars culminate. That means stars should be visible due south some minus 35 degrees southern declination. There, Scorpius's bright open cluster M7 should just be visible mid-July at skydark. To assemble a portable telescope, you start with a tripod and go up from there. Because the scope will be on a raised deck, anti-vibration pads are useful. Once the tripod is in place, you can add the polar axis. The polar axis must point due north in the sky and be level in both directions. Once the polar axis is level, you add the equatorial axis mount. Between the two axis and rotating scope plate, the telescope can be pointed anywhere in the sky. The polar axis is set to tilt the same as the latitude of the scope. The counterweight shaft with adjustable weights is added to balance the telescope. The telescope itself rides in a cradle. The cradle is hinge open to receive the scope. The controller mount won't be used on this occasion. The OTA, optical tube assembly, with dew shield is then installed. Since this is a refractor, observing accessories are installed on this end of the scope. Due to scope and mount color, a sun blocker is needed during the day. Now it's time for accessorization. The OTA includes a focuser where accessories are to be mounted. First up is the 2-inch star diagonal. The diagonal improves viewing position, especially near the zenith, overhead. The finder scope, also with diagonal, is mounted next. A bino viewer can be mounted in a diagonal, but may not come to focus, depending on focal travel. Sadly, the 150 ED Skywatcher does not come with enough travel to support a 2-inch diagonal with bino viewer. Straight through bino viewer use, however, no problemo. 2 fine mounting adjustments must now be made with all accessories in place. Counterweights must be shifted to perfectly balance OTA with accessories. And the scope itself must be shifted in its cradle to balance from due shield to bino viewer, or diagonal with single eyepiece. Now fully balanced, weights to scope and bino viewer to lens cap, and looking deep south. Here the scope looks northeast for stars rising by night as the Earth turns. Ready for that first glimpse of a culminating Jupiter with its bands on the run? Jupiter is best seen at 150 to 250x. Bino viewer installed with Barlow lens in focus. Jupiter sketched by Saul Robbins through his 150 ED Skywatcher. While Saul had stupendous seeing through his Skywatcher that night, Jeff's view looked more like these. Of course, once observing is over, everything needs to be put away. All but Barlow fits in the bino case. The finder is capped and dismounted. Eyepieces receive lens caps. Diagonal 2. The mount was left out for next day disassembly. Eyepiece tray yet to be removed. Cradle to be removed. Counterweight shaft decoupled. Scope mount head to be decoupled. Polar axis head decoupled. Tripod collapse. Anti-vibration pads separated. The entire mount now poised for stowage. Easy fix up with his tightener. Done! Tripod in the bag. Polar axis bag stowed. Counterweight axis bag stowed. Counterweight axis cradle, eyepiece tray, carefully stowed. Mount assembly components now ready for cartage. Okay, it's test time. What's this called? And this? How about one of these? What's one of these used for? Yeah, that's a Barlow. When would you need one? Why would you want one of these setups? These are called Eyepiece Filters. How might they be useful? These are legacy eyepieces. Any idea what size diagonal they fit in? Everything here mounts in the visual back of the OTA. What's a visual back? What's hiding in this bag? This bag holds lots of small but needed stuff. How would you use this baby? Or pages like this. A deep sky atlas and a whole lot more. It also allows you to group and log observations by telescope aperture and seeing conditions. Another atlas, but showing fainter stars and deep sky studies. Let's not call them objects. How might you use this? And this? This stuff wasn't used last night. It's a celestial navigation and tracking controller. This allows the controller to be manually operated. How would you use these two together? These lock bolts mount the controller. And these cables tell servos on the mount to drive to a wanted deep sky study. Controller electronics is powered by 12 volts DC. 12 VDC can be converted from 120 VAC. On this deck, a 120 volt AC extension cord is needed. Again, what's all this stuff used for? Yeah, it too needs bagging. These also came with mount and scope. This will probably be used in the future for better eyepiece ergonomics, especially when using the Bino viewer without what? For low power wide field views. These items are used for astrovideography and imaging. One of them connects digital data to a laptop. Yep, the cable. Again, it all has to be stowed. Same with the OTA. Why would you need something like this for astro? But one day maybe stuff won't have to be stowed and carted afterward. Carpe noctem!